your team got guaranteed money, tell them call me.
Whoop. Make me say, my. I done been around the world.
Yeah, I was made for this.
Player Performance with J.A. Cavalier.
What's going on, everybody? We are back once again for College Football Week 8 Player Performance. I am Gunz CFB and joined, as always, with my man. It is Coach Rick. What's going on, my friend? How you doing on this beautiful, I guess it'd be a Thursday if you're watching this recorded.
Yeah, true. It would be Thursday when you're watching this. Great to be alive, of course, better than the alternative. And it's always great when it's football season and you get games every day now. Since we're at this point in the season where we have a couple of Tuesday games, a couple Wednesday games, and so on. So looking forward to this card because there are some great games, especially the matchups of ranked opponents that we will dive into momentarily.
Yeah, you mentioned great games. We usually give you 4 top 25 games, but Coach and I had a little bit of a discussion. He said, well, there's too many goddamn good games this week. We have to give you 5. So we're going to break down 5 ranked matchups this week. And, of course, we will not deter you from the dirtiest of the dirty plays at the end of the show. So while you're watching this now, you're watching this later, like and subscribe to the J. Cavalier channel and drop a comment if you're loving the content that's coming from myself and Coach Rick on this show. But without further ado, let's get into the first play on the board. We got a good one in the SEC out in First Bank Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. 12 p.m. is going to be the kick on this one. We have the LSU Tigers going against the Vanderbilt Commodores. You know, Vandy is playing real good, 5-1. They're coming off that bye week, off a loss, too, for that matter. And they are favored for the first time. I couldn't find a time they were favored against a ranked opponent in the history of the program. So a very interesting spot, Coach. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, you kind of, took the words out of my mouth. Like, minus 2.5, really? Every time I would hear LSU, Vanderbilt, I mean, all I can think of is, Vandy plus 20, plus 21, plus 24. I mean, they've been double-digit favorites almost every year. Up until last year, they were a 9.5-point dog in the game last year. But now you see them as a 2.5-point favorite. And that speaks highly of Clark Lee. And, he was the SEC Coach of the Year last year. Probably should be this year again. I mean, it's kind of a rinse-repeat deal. And they might be better than they were last year. This is a highly efficient offense, 7th in the country in scoring. They put up 43 points a game, and they just do everything well. Number 2 in the country in third down. Like, if you can convert third downs almost 60% of the time, like you're going to extend drives and you're going to move the ball and you're going to score. They do all the little things well. 4 sacks given up this year. That's it. 4. 6 games, 4 sacks. I'll take that. They run the ball for 210, 209, 210 a game. And then you got the stud. Like, I don't want to bet against Diego Pavia. Like, that kid just finds a way to beat you. Last year in this game, LSU won the game 24-17. Pavia, on Vanderbilt's first play, throws a 62, 63-yard touchdown pass, like right off the bat. So this team competes. They know how to compete. They're going to go up against a really good defense. So LSU, the defense is legit. They're 5-1 in their 5 wins. They gave up 10, 7, 10, 10, and 10. So, they're 5th in the country in scoring, D. They only allow 11.8 a game, which, when you're giving up 10, 11, 12 points, like, you can win because especially when your offense isn't playing well, which theirs really isn't. So the difference here really, I think, is defense, and it's on Vandy's end. So last year when these two played, I mentioned the score, LSU won 24-17. They let Garrett Nussmeier throw for 332 yards. Big reason for that, they played a ton of zone coverage. Last year, they were about 85% zone. This year, a little different. They're playing more man coverage. You won't see that much zone, definitely not 80, 85%. There's still issues with pass defense. They're only 69th in the nation, 227 a game. And you saw Alabama. Ty Simpson actually tore them up when they did play zone, and he threw for over 300 yards against Vandy. So you have to watch what Nussmeier does against their defense. But I think the difference is Vandy's defense. They're opportunistic, 10 takeaways. They shut down the run, and if they can have a little bit of success against Nussmeier in a passing game, I think they win the game. I'm not there yet, but I lean towards Vandy, and I'm being my conservative self, I'm leaning more towards taking Vandy on the money line right now.
Yeah, I think we're aligned a little bit on this one. You mentioned a lot of the notes that I have on this one. Great run offense here for Vandy, right? 200 yards, 6.6 yards per carry. They're actually better at home, 7.2 yards per carry at home. And I know everybody talks about this LSU defense. I think they're a little bit suspect on the run, especially when they're going against conference opponents. Once they got into conference play, you started to see things kind of open up for the running offenses to their opponents. 146 yards per game given up to opponents versus inside the conference. And then you had the revenge angle. Coach mentioned it, right? 24-17 on the road, 8.5-point dogs in that situation on the road. Changes in the defense could be manipulating the line a little bit, could be revisionist history, the revenge angle. You're playing back at home. But now they're a -2.5 favorite currently. I think this is the books telling you a story here. 8.5-point dog a year ago. You lost the game by 7, did cover the spread. But now you're at home and now you're a favorite. I know this LSU team is, in my opinion, is a little bit overvalued in the market. I think the offense has really taken a step back. I think that offensive line has really been not as good as it was last year. Of course, losing a lot of pros. We mentioned this line again and again. But I think Vandy is a spot on this one. The only way I'm going to be playing this, if I do play this on Saturday, it's going to be taking Vandy. Either money line or first half or somewhere under the -3 is probably the key on this one, just so I don't get screwed at the end with some hook on some of these games. So let's get into the next game on the board. Do we have a dozer out in Athens, Georgia? Sanford Stadium is the spot here. 3:30 is going to be the kick on Saturday. And you have a Georgia team 5-1 on the year and off a nice win versus Auburn. It's a little bit sloppy, but they got the win nonetheless. And even sloppier win from Ole Miss against Washington State, only winning by 3, but they're undefeated, 6-0 on the year. Coach, this is a big matchup here in the SEC with maybe some SEC championship implications, maybe some playoff implications. I'll pass it to you. What do you think about this one, Coach?
Yeah, this should be a great football game too, just like all the ones that we'll discuss here. Last year, Georgia goes to Ole Miss, 2-point favorite. Ole Miss beats them 28-10. We turn around this year, Ole Miss 5th rank in the country, 6-0. And I know they didn't play well last week. Neither did Georgia. Really, if Auburn scores before the half there, didn't fumble the ball away, I mean, that would have been different. But still, they pull out the win. And, now you're looking at Georgia -7.5 at home between the hedges. They've won 11 of the last 13 against Ole Miss, and they've covered 4 of the last 6. I think, the books are trying to tell you something there. They've won 2 straight since they lost to Bama. However, game before that, kind of they have to go to overtime to beat Tennessee. You can call it luck, whatever you want to say. The issue that I see is that Georgia has trouble with teams that throw the ball well. Tennessee had 370, and Alabama throws for 280. Georgia's pass defense, decent, but not an elite passing defense. Now you're going up against an Ole Miss team. Lane Kiffin the dude's a guru, and right now they're 8th in the country, 311 passing yards a game. Trinidad Chambliss mentioned last week that he's from right here, other side of the state, Grand Rapids. Took Ferris State to a D2 championship. The kid's electric. I mean, he can run. Last week he had, issues, but, only had 15 yards rushing, but 20 out of 29 for 253 in the air, and still leads him to a win. And that's what the kid does. The kid just wins. So should be an excellent matchup for, Ole Miss against that Georgia passing defense. The difference, I think, here is Ole Miss, the defense just isn't what it was last year. Still pretty stout unit. They only give up a little less than 20 points a game, but they're getting smoked up front in the run game. And that just happens to be the thing that Georgia's really, really good at. They love to turn around, hand the ball off. They ran for 227 against Bama, right around 200 against Tennessee. And Ole Miss, if you dig into some of the advanced stats and metrics, they're actually bottom 10, like bottom 10 in the nation. That's out of 136 teams. Bottom 10 in a couple of things called line yards and stuff rate. And it essentially just means that they're not very good against the run. So they could have trouble with Georgia's running game. What I find most interesting is this. Ole Miss, the last 6 trips to Sanford Stadium, they have scored 17, 10, 17, 17, 14, and 17, which, and I know that goes back to almost, the late 90s. Last time they scored more than 17 is like 1996, I believe. So I just found it interesting that they just seemed to not score at Georgia, which, that leads me to where I'm going is, I looked at the total. I believe opened around 54.5, maybe goes up to 55.5, then it's down to 54. I saw 53.5 at some books. So initially I'm thinking, but I think both these offenses can really put it up. But then I look at that total and how it's moved, and it's like, I don't know. So this is a situation where, I'm going to have you go and do what we did last week. And I mentioned this, I look at it quite often as both teams to score a certain amount of points. I think Ole Miss, if you look at their team total, you can actually get their team total 20.5, 21.5. I like the 20.5, though it's priced, maybe minus 145, minus 150. But the better play, I think, is both teams to score 20 or more. I for some reason, I don't see why this wouldn't be a 27-24, or even if it's close and low scoring, it's 23-20 or something like that. I'm not on the over yet, but I do like I'll lean on for now, both teams scoring 20 or more, which I believe minus 140 at one of the books I found.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I'm looking at it too. I mean, I don't have an official play on this one, but the total was kind of enticing to me because of, a lot of the stats that you brought up on this one. And I thought that because, you remember Georgia's offenses from the past, you would remember they would kind of dominate the trenches. They would have huge run. Like this year, they're a little bit all over the place, right? Gunnar Stockton not looking his greatest. The running game not working. So maybe a little bit of the offensive line could be the problem on this one. Mind you, and then it's more of a situational cap here when you look at Ole Miss. I mean, they're playing their first road game since September 6th. I mean, they played 4 straight home games, and they had a bye week. So this is 6 weeks coming into this one, and now they have to go play in Georgia, a place they don't play very well. And then Ole Miss, strong offense, very explosive. I get that. 515 yards per game total offense. They're good in the run. They're better in the pass, 311 passing yards per game, 9.9 yards per attempt. And then you have Georgia's defense. They've just been very strong. That's kind of been the key point with them all season long. 92 rushing yards per game, 2.9 yards per carry, 216 yards per game given up to opponents. They actually hold opponents to 88 yards below their season average. Every time you play them, you're going to have worse stats than your season average. There is a revenge angle, of course. Coach mentioned it, 28-10 last year in Ole Miss. But they were 2-point road favorites in this one, but the line kind of, teetering right around 7.5, maybe 8. Who knows how the line's going to go by Saturday. The home team does have the advantage on this one, 4 straight covers. But like Coach said, there's revisionist history. They played in 2024, 2023, 2016, 2012, 2011. So there's a little bit of a skip in the matrix there when you're looking at the trends on this one. 4-1 to the under as well. But I think this total feels a little bit too high with 2 good defenses. If I was Georgia, what do you want to do when you're playing an explosive offense? You want to keep them off the field. You're going to try to control time of possession with the run game, maybe some short passes. Gunnar Stockton's not going to really try to rip the ball and try to outscore you. Ole Miss will try to, but I think with that Georgia defense, as long as you keep them rested, it's going to be a low-scoring affair. And like Coach said, they don't score when they go to Georgia. So I think the under is definitely a look. Not an official for me, but I think if we're looking under 54, 54.5, if it gets to 55, I'd say that might be a good take for one unit. All right, let's go to the next game on the board. Speaking of the SEC, speaking of Tennessee and Bama at Bryant-Dennis Stadium, 7:30 p.m. is going to be the kick. It's going to be a night game here in Alabama, Tuscaloosa for that matter. Tennessee 5-1 on the year, off a close win against an Arkansas team that my Irish pummeled in their stadium. But you have Bama coming off that 5-game win streak, big road win last week against Missouri, off that big win the week prior against Vandy. I think this Bama team's legit, Coach. What do you think about this game? Is Tennessee got it in them, or is this a Bama spot all day long?
Well, it's the third Saturday in October, and it's time for a little Tennessee-Bama tussle in Tuscaloosa, where Tennessee has not won a game since 2003. And then you take a look at the series, the last 10. And these are border states, so they played each other every year. 8 of the last 10, Alabama's won. All the wins are by double digits. So, and last year, they go to Knoxville. They're a 3.5-point favorite, and Tennessee wins the game. That, of course, one of the wins in the last 10. But the year before that, back in Tuscaloosa, Alabama was an 8.5-point favorite at home again, and they won that game by 14. So I think, to answer your question, is Bama legit? Are they for real? Yeah, absolutely. So if you recall, if you watched us, I think it might have been last week or maybe it was the week before. Actually, I think it was the week before. We were talking about Vanderbilt, and I mentioned Alabama's pass defense, and it might not be all that we thought it was. They're ranked highly, and they had all these great stats, but not a lot of attempts and a lot of reps against them, really. So now we fast forward, and we can say for sure that Alabama's pass defense is legit. They're number 3 in the country, and they just pummeled a very good Missouri offense last week. Bo Pribula just had a terrible day because Alabama's so damn good. And the same against Vandy. So this Alabama pass D, I think, is legit. Tennessee's offense, outstanding. Josh Heupel, I've talked about him before. This is the top scoring team in the country, 48 plus per game. It's the veer and shoot. I think I've mentioned that a few times. Basically, you're going to spread the field, and they run a couple things called deep choice, and they throw some quick screens, and they try to get guys out of the box, and then they can manipulate the box and run the ball for a shitload of yards, which Tennessee does. Not only do they throw it for a lot, they run it for a lot too. But the difference comes down in this game comes down to one thing: pass defense on both sides. Alabama, outstanding. They're going to do a great job against the veer and shoot because they have in the past. They've seen it for 4 years now. And then on the other end, Tennessee's pass defense just isn't very good. Ty Simpson, we all know, is good enough. He's adequate. He's had some great games, and I think he'll have another one against Tennessee's pass defense, which isn't good. 124th in the country. I mean, that's an SEC defense that's 124th against the pass, almost 260 yards a game. They did have a couple injuries, I think, in their back seven. I don't think they're going to be missing. I don't think they'll miss anybody this week. But the one other big thing Tennessee will have to fix, penalties. Like they just, if you're on defense and you stop somebody and then, we get called for a late hit or something stupid. Tennessee averages almost 8 penalties a game, which that's top 20 in the country. Like you can't sustain 5-1 and keep beating people in the SEC when you commit 8 penalties a game. So if they don't fix that, not only are they going to get beat, but they're going to get their ass handed to them, and they better keep the bus running so that they can get on it and get the hell out after they get stomped. Bama has won 15 straight at home, 10 straight at home against Tennessee. I'll give you a couple of anytime touchdowns because there's going to be a ton of them in this game, I think. You got to look at a kid named Jeremy Bernard for an anytime touchdown. If you're looking at it, get it early because I think it's minus 130 already. It's gonna skyrocket. You might take a look at Simpson. for an anytime touchdown. He scored a few on the ground. You look at both Simpson and Joey Aguilar, the Tennessee quarterback. Look, their passing yards props. Simpson's right now is at 288.5. Last week it was in the 270s. They're telling you something there. You might want to look at the over. Aguilar has been in the 270s and 280s all year. His passing yards prop right now, 237.5. Check out the under because they're telling you it's coming. Like I said, number 3 pass defense in the country for Alabama. But in the end, for me, this is Alabama all day. I don't like the number. I can get -7 at about -130, -128, somewhere in there. So if I can find that, I'll take it. If not, it's going to be a prop game.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing you shop around, you can find a 7.5. I'm seeing 8.5s on the board, pretty much standard 8.5 right now as we're recording this one. You said a lot of it, right? This Bama team is different. I mean, you see them come off that loss against Florida State, and then all of a sudden, it kind of just revved that motor, just got them kicking, right? They had a plus 18-point differential, plus 138 net yard average, 305 passing yards per game, 71% pass completion rate. And then you go, when they hit conference play, they have a plus 7-point differential, plus 63 net yard average. They gained 147 yards above their opponent's defense season average, and they hold their opponents to 140 yards below their opponent's season average versus conference opponents. This isn't a legit team that we need to be paying attention to. Kalen DeBoer, they want to put his head on a spike in week 1. I think they may want to move the statue over a little bit in maybe a year or two and give a little bit of room next to Saban. But when you look at the Bama, they played a very tough schedule, right? You look at the last 3 opponents they played. I mean, ranked opponents. You got Vandy, you got Missouri, you got Georgia. They got the job done back to back and almost unfazed in most of these situations. Then you get the revenge angle, of course. Bama lost to Tennessee last year on the road, 24-17, 3-point road favorites in that situation. Now they're an 8.5 favorite. But like Coach said, I don't really like the line. I like the first half, and let me tell you why. They've held the lead by 7 points or more in 4 out of the last 5 games. The only one they didn't have the lead after half was against Vandy. Then you have Tennessee. Start slow last 2 games. You watched it against Mississippi State. I think they were tied in that game. And then you saw it against Arkansas. I think they were tied in that game as well. And I think those 2 teams are 2 inferior opponents compared to what Bama has faced. And then you see the line. The line was enticing because it was 65% of the full game line was in the first half. We're seeing 5.5s hit the board here. That's a high indicator that they're expecting not only Bama to might win that game, might cover that game, but they're going to come out fast. And I think they will based on how Tennessee performs in the first half versus how Bama performs in the first half. They're going to want to punch you in the mouth off that revenge angle. I think first half Bama is the way to play this one. Give me Bama -5.5. First half as the play. All right, let me go throw up now because I got to go talk about this game. This is for my damn season, guys. This is for my damn season. It's in South Bend, Indiana. It's in the perfect situation that you want USC. You don't want to play in the Coliseum. You want to play in South Bend, and you want to play at night. This is the perfect spot. For USC coming off that big win last week, looking very good against Michigan, but it was at home, not on the road, on the East Coast. Say that much. And Notre Dame, well, even though they're playing inferior opponents, they've looked pretty good, especially the losses that they've had. Those guys have looked pretty good. But I'll pass it to you, Coach. We have a big game here in South Bend. USC, Notre Dame. What do you think?
Huge. Like you said, for your season, you got that right. Notre Dame really can't afford another loss. A 3-loss team in the playoff, God. I have my own opinion of the playoff situation. I don't even like 2-loss teams, but that's a whole discussion for another day. But they're going to have a tough time. They're going to have their hands full. I don't know. Is this a green jersey game?
I'll have to look that up. I didn't know. I think we just had a green jersey game.
Probably, it's probably not. But it's huge for Notre Dame. And it's big for USC, too, because USC, like you mentioned, 5-1. One of the more explosive offenses in the country. Jaden Maeva is outstanding. 1,800 plus yards passing. I think USC scores over 45 a game. number 2 pass offense, but I think we all forget that they run the ball too. 226 yards on the ground a game. I mean, 550 yards. Like I mean, they're God. Like put on their film and hey, this is how you run the air raid. Like I said, Notre Dame's going to have their hands full because their pass defense isn't really good. 105th, 106th in the country. They just give up too many yards, and you saw it. Luke Allmeyer threw for 331, and then my QB Ryan Brown from Purdue threw for 305. Purdue isn't very good. So really nobody's really held Maiva to anything. I mean, his lowest output. I mean, Michigan. You can say Michigan has a great pass defense. Well, he still threw for 265, and they won by double digits. He threw for 282 against Purdue because they didn't have to. So I think Notre Dame has some issues defensively, but you know what? On the other end, it's the same thing. Notre Dame scores 40 points a game. God. They're 173 yards rushing a game. The pass offense, actually, everybody wanted to say, oh, well, C.J. Carr's young and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing, whatever. It kind of wrote him off before the season. And, now their pass offense ranked in the top 25. So they can do a lot offensively. The problem for USC then is actually that. It's the pass defense. One of our kids from here, just up the road, Clarkston, Michigan, he came from our training organization. He starts at inside linebacker for USC. Des Stevens, you'll see him Saturday night, number 23. And I don't like knocking kids, but Des was a corner in high school. I remember telling, we talked to his dad, said this kid's going to be a linebacker in college, and don't be surprised if he's like a 5 technique, D end rushing the passer at some point, because he's just so damn big and fast. But he's not a physical kid. He's and you see that a lot with USC's defense. Like, they are extremely talented. They are fast, but they're not the most physical. So that could be an issue, and that could be an issue in the pass D. As they try to get after the QB, and of course as they try and tackle these Notre Dame receivers. For me, it's a question of how many points are going to be scored, because both these teams can light it up. And I saw Notre Dame in person against Purdue, and they are, the offense, they're a juggernaut, man. They can score, and they can score on anybody. The game total here, again, this is a situation like the first game we talked about. Game total was 65.5. Now it's 61.5. That's telling you something that's going in the other direction. But I still think both these teams score points. So I'm going to go back to, the one that I told you about before. You go to DraftKings, you go to game props, and you look for both teams to score. And the one I like is both teams to score 25 plus, because they both have, I believe, in all of their games. I know USC has. Notre Dame, I think they did. I know they had a 28-7. I don't think they've been under 28. Maybe you can check that out. But both teams to score 25 plus is plus 122 right now. That price is only going to get worse. So check that. If you like it, jump on it now.
Yeah, they've only been under 28 once this season, and it was the first game. He had 24 points. But you mentioned that Notre Dame defense, and I just want to talk about them. I kind of want to defend them a little bit, because once the play calling got taken out of Chris Ash's hands and they started to blitz a little bit more, getting back to what that team was last year, you're watching this defense start to rise a little bit, right? So, held Boise to 289, held NC State to 233. And you look at the stats as far as these team season averages, they held Miami to 126 yards below their season average. They held Arkansas to 176 below their season average. They held Boise to 212 below their season average, and NC State 215 below their season average. So this defense, well, yeah, they gave up some points here and there, but you see the progression of this team start to get better on the defensive side of the ball, and that's dangerous there for USC. USC, I'm not taking anything away from them. They have great numbers on the offensive side of the ball, 552 yards of total offense, 6.2 yards per carry, 326 in the air. very good offensive line, 1.6% sack rate. But I will say this: who have they played? Other than Michigan, and everybody wants to, weigh Michigan very high. That's fine. But they played Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, Michigan State, Illinois, who has a bad defense, by the way, and Michigan. That's who they've played so far. This is going to be the best defense that they've seen all season long. Notre Dame's offense is great as well. 466 in total offense, 4.7 yards per carry, 293 through the air, and this team offensively is getting better because C.J. Carr is getting more comfortable in the offense. They put up 137 yards above their opponent's defensive season average, and they played some top 5 teams for that matter. Of course, Notre Dame did win last year. Very close game. Couple of pick sixes kind of made that game get away from USC. They did have a shot. They were 7.5-point road favorites in that situation. 9.5 now. Not really what you want to see is pure domination, but the total was 53. Now, like Coach said, the total is 61.5. It's a big shift, so they're expecting a little bit of offense, and it's justified. USC's offense has definitely gotten better. Notre Dame's offense, I think, it has gotten better because they can pass the ball, they can air it out, and the receivers got better. First time this season that USC has been a dog, I will say that, and they're kind of a two-possession dog. They're 2-10 ATS on the road, last 12, but you have to understand most of that was as a favorite, not as a dog. A little bit scary here. I do like the total a little bit over, and I do kind of lead towards the Notre Dame side. The line keeps creeping up in that direction towards Notre Dame. Might hit 10. We'll see what happens on before the game. Am I going to be bet on this game? No, because I'm emotionally invested. I might play the total, but I'm not going to play the side. That's going to do it there for that game. Let's do one more for the top 25, and let's talk about the Holy War. The Holy War out in Lavelle Edwards Stadium in Provo, Utah. 8 p.m. is the kickoff on this one. And by God, I think everybody's going to be watching this game because it starts at 8 o'clock. It's going to be the primetime game, along with Notre Dame, of course. But this game is going to be huge. You have BYU that's 6-0 on the year, and they're going against a Utah team that's 5-1 on the year, but they lost to a very good Texas Tech team. This is the big one. It's the Battle of the Mormons, baby. What are your thoughts, Coach? Utah versus BYU.
Holy war. So if you ask a Utah fan, what's the series record? Well, that would be 62-36-4 Utah. But if you ask a BYU fan, for some reason it's 59-33-4, which I don't get it. But anyway, it just proves that these two teams just hate each other. But it's a battle, a bunch of Mormons, which, I don't know anything about. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not even going to go there. But these two teams are essentially carbon copies of each other. If you look at how they play, you look at their stats, numbers, look at personnel, like these two teams are built almost identically. Both coaches are big believers in defense and running the football and playing good special teams. And you see it every time they play, every time they go out, like they're in every game. I know Utah ran into, a juggernaut there, Texas Tech, but both these teams top 15 scoring defense. Utah's 11th, BYU's 12th. Both offenses can score, top 25 in scoring, both of them. Utah 16, BYU's 21st. Both close to 40 points a game. Both have outstanding running games. Utah rushes for 248 yards a game. When you do that, you do a lot of good things. One being controlling the football and keeping it away from your opponent. BYU runs for 238. That's 10th best in the country. I mean, the quarterbacks too. Look at the QBs. You got Devin Dampier, Utah, dual threat. Last week, 120, I believe, on the ground, 3 touchdowns, threw for over 100. Just dynamic, and he completes 72% of his passes. You got the Bear on the other side, Bear Bachmeier, true freshman. I don't know if anybody realizes it, but he went to Stanford. He enrolled at Stanford January of this year, and then decided to transfer with his brother to BYU. And true freshman, BYU doesn't start true freshmen very often. but this kid's legit, and he can run it. He's got 7 rushing touchdowns. When he plays, like, you got to take a look at the Bear Bachmeier anytime touchdown, and check out the pricing on that. He can throw it too, over 1,200 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, and only 3 picks. So, like I said, carbon copies. Like, these two teams are just built to battle each other, and that's what it's going to be on Saturday. And here's the info that I'm going to throw out there for you to do what you want with. So, Gunz mentioned that the game is at 8 p.m. That's our time here in the East Coast. Local time, that'll be 6 p.m. They are Mountain Time. They're going to kick off at 6. So, BYU, since 2019, in night games, happens to be 32-4. The issue is whether or not you think this is a night game, because technically they call the night game anything that kicks off at 7 or later. Regardless, BYU is pretty damn good at home, okay? The second thing is this. Since 2017, you have a home team that is an underdog that happens to be the higher-ranked team playing a ranked opponent, okay? Since 2017, in this situation, the home dog has covered the spread 53, 29, and 3. That's 65%. Home dog, you got to back the home dog. I'm on BYU. I'm going to play BYU plus 3.5, obviously, but I might sprinkle a little on the money line here just because I think the Cougars might get a win here.
I think this is where we differ. We rarely differ on this show, but I think this is a Utah spot. I can't get past this. I'm looking at the numbers and I'm comparing. We have some comparable opponents in this one. I'll get to that in a second. But both teams, you know what they can do? They can put up some damn points. BYU puts up 38 points per game, 32 points per game versus conference opponents. Utah puts up 40 points per game, 33 points per game versus conference opponents. Advantage Utah. Then you have BYU's defense. They've given up points to opponents as well. They gave up 21 to Colorado, 24 to West Virginia, and then they gave up 27 last week to Arizona. And then the comparable opponent here is West Virginia. What did BYU do versus what Utah did to them? BYU versus West Virginia, plus 14-point differential, plus 225 net yards, minus 1 turnover ratio. Utah thumped West Virginia, plus 34-point differential, plus 186 net yard average, minus 1 turnover ratio. Advantage Utah. Also, the revenge angle. I love revenge angles in college football as long as the line correlates. Of course, BYU won the game 22-21 as 3-point, and where Utah was 3-point home dogs in that situation. Now they're the favorite on the road. And then you look at the matchup. Total last year was 41, now 48.5, maybe leaning towards the overside, knowing these teams can score some points. But Utah is 5-1 ATS this year. Only loss was to Texas Tech. The over is 4-2 in their games. And this is the first time all season that BYU's been a dog. So we don't know how they're going to perform in this one. But I tell you this is a big rivalry. This is, you want to get a Mormon to swear? Go put on a red U hat and go walk down their neighborhood. You're going to hear some cussing for the first time, and they probably haven't cussed since they were 12. Whatever. I don't know. But I tried to get a Mormon to cuss. I've tried. But I digress. I love the Utah Utes in this situation. They're favored on the road for a reason. I love Dan Pierre. I know Bear Bachmeier is great, but I have Hank Bachmeier nightmares in my sleep, if you remember him and all the damn schools that he played with. Give me Utah here, -3. All right. We gave you the top 25. Now we're going to get into some of the nitty-gritty, ugly, but profitable games on the board. And I'm going to start with Coach here because Coach has something on Cincinnati versus Oklahoma State.
Wow.
My God, the Bearcats having themselves a damn season. And, of course, Oklahoma State put a help wanted side up for their next coach. I'll pass it to you, Coach. Where are you going with this game?
How about the graphic there with the Cincinnati? Man, somebody needs to learn how to spell. Come on, fellas.
Just noticed that.
I don't. Yeah, did you see that?
I just ignored the two ends.
I figure if you're going to do anything, you're going to spell Oklahoma State wrong, just because I don't think they can spell it. They can't do anything. God, they're terrible. I mean, this is probably the worst Power 4 program in the country. I mean, they are bad. So, and here's the list. 129th points against, 36.7. 127th red zone defense. Third down defense, 108. Passing defense, 133rd. Run defense, 110. Yards per play, 129.
Oh.
I mean, they're terrible. This is a bad football team. Way back, I mentioned a long time ago, Hoss Haney was a QB, and the kid's going to be a stud. He's outstanding, but he got hurt. They lose the QB. They go to Zane Stevens, whatever his name is, and their offense is just they're not good. They don't stop anybody defensively. You can go on and on and on. They don't cover a lot either. They've lost 13 straight Big 12 games, and they're 1-10 against the spread in their last 11. I think they covered one game this year. On the other end, Cincinnati might. This is one of the surprises, I think, of the season. Really, they just broke the top 25. They're ranked 24th in the nation. They can score 36 points a game. Brendan Sorsby, people knocked him early. He's this, he's that. Well, dude's 5-1, completes 65%, 14-48 in the air, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception. Doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't make mistakes. He can run, gets a lot of yardage off of scrambles. He's athletic. I say all that just because, this is a situation where Cincinnati just beats the shit out of this team, really. I know it's a big number, but I'm gonna take Cincinnati, and I'm gonna get minus 21. And for an additional play, take a look at Oklahoma State's team total. Right now, for some reason, the books think they're going to score, I guess. The team total is sitting at 17.5. So if that changes, if that happens to go down towards game time, you might want to jump on the under on that. But we're going to take Cincinnati minus 21.
Wow. You got to fade that awful Oklahoma State team. What a fall from grace.
Sure.
We'll see what happens with the situation there in Oklahoma. But let's talk a little bit MAC action here. Let's talk a little Central Michigan and Bowling Green. Yes, I gave you a MAC pick last week. I gave you the under. Did it cash? Absolutely it did with the under. I'm going back to the well. I'm not going to be taking a total on this one. I'm going to be looking at a side, and let me tell you why. Because in Deutsch Stadium at 12 p.m. Saturday, it's going to be rocking with 20 people in the stands. Let me tell you why. You got Bowling 3-3 on the year, coming off a big win, highs of highs. They beat Toledo. Toledo's one of the better teams in the MAC. And then, of course, Central Michigan coming off that win 2 weeks ago. They're coming off a bye, so they're rested for this one. They did lose their previous game, though, against Akron, 28-22. And if you break down that box score again with Bowling Green against Toledo, I can't believe they won the game. Minus 203 net yard average in that game, and they won the game. They had Toledo had a 21-0 lead in the second quarter, and then of course Toledo fumbled at their own one, and then they let up two big touchdowns from Bowling Green, and then they ended up losing that game off the two big touchdown passes. They never scored again. That's how they lost the game, even though they won the yardage battle by an egregious amount, which if you win by 100 plus or more, you're winning by 2 scores, as long as you're not turning the ball over. But Toledo did, fumbled the bag, lost the game. Bowling Green's defense, not great, giving up 400 yards of total offense in 4 out of the last 6 games. And then Central Michigan is a run-oriented team. They love to run the rock, 272 rushing yards per game versus conference opponents, 6 yards per carry. And last year, Bowling Green beat Central Michigan 23-13. However, they were 14 and a half point road favorites in that situation. Now you're seeing them as a short favorite at home. The line went in the reverse direction. That is a high indicator And when you see Bowling Green as a favorite, by God, you got to fade them. They're 6-10 run in their last 16 in those situations versus conference opponents. I'm going to be taking Central Michigan here, baby. Plus 4.5. Might as well sprinkle Salt Bay that stuff on the money line. Central Michigan to get it done for the MAC. All right, Coach. We got another play here, and we talked about this backstage. By God, the total of this one is insane, hitting the 70+ on this one, but it's justifiable with FAU versus South Florida. South Florida playing great offense, playing fast, and scoring a ton of points. I love this USF team, but FAU, you say, can score points as well. But I'll pass it to you, Coach. You have a take on this game.
I do. You mentioned the total, 74.5. I don't know if we had a game that high this year yet. But it's 74.5 for good reason. Both these teams can light it up. And if you don't know much about FAU, quarterback's Caden Veltkamp. He's been around. They actually have one of our kids, Jay-Sean Platt, played with us in some 7-on-7 tournaments in Florida. He's from Venice High School. He's a receiver there, and he plays on an offense. They score about 33 points a game. So they can light it up. The problem for FAU is that they don't play defense. Not only can they score, but they can give up points too. So they give up about 33 a game. Not very good against the run, and that's going to be an issue because South Florida just will pound you. This is South Florida. Alex Golish is the head coach. His name's probably gonna bounce around with some of these coaching openings, but he's a Josh Heupel guy. Golish actually was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee for a while before he came to South Florida. So it's that same veer and shoot offense. Spread the field. And a lot of times these teams run for a boatload of yards. Well, South Florida's one of them, and their quarterback is awesome, Byron Brown. So I think you're going to see him do a lot of work. And USF averages 41 points a game. The books are telling you that they're going to score a shitload of points because their team total is set at 45.5. They're coming off a game they scored 60+. I actually like USF to go over their team total, over 45.5.
Yeah, I don't hate it, especially when you see that high total. You're going to see offense. I know
For sure.
Are they going to get over that precipice of 70? Man, that'd be fun to watch. Go check that game out. Let's talk about the game I like here as far as the total is concerned. With West Virginia going against UCF at the Bounce House in FBC Morgan Stadium in Orlando, Florida. And we look at these two teams, a lot different than what we've seen in the past, right? Usually you would think they're high-flying, high-scoring, no-huddle type of thing. Well, things have kind of changed for both programs. Of course, UCF struggled in conference play. They're 0-3 straight up. They average 17 points per game. You look at West Virginia, since they got into conference play, and they're 0-3 straight up, 16 points per game. So these teams don't like to score points. Last year, these teams met at Morgantown. West Virginia did win that game 31-21 as 3-point favorites. The total was 61. Now the total is 46.5 here at the Bounce House. Makes no sense, but it makes perfect sense. This is the lowest total of the year for UCF, and they are 3-1 to the under at home this season. Then you got to look at West Virginia, 2-1 to the under this season on the road. And this is the lowest total in all of West Virginia's games. So with all that being said, the two teams that can't score, might as well take an under. I'm going to be taking the under in this one. West Virginia, UCF, under the total here at 46.5. Woo! Coach, we did it. We broke down the top 25 games. We gave you 4 extra games. Coach gave you 2. I gave you 2. Now, what you need to do, because you got made to the end of this video, you need to subscribe to the J Cavalier channel. You need to follow Why Lose Guns, Why Lose Coach on Instagram, and you need to get to our Telegrams. Check out the deals we got. Coach, what do you got going on at Why Lose this week?
We're going to fire up a max bet Friday, $49. Fire up a max bet Saturday, $49. Along with those max bets, I always have probably anywhere from 2 to 10 other plays as well. You get all that, $49. If I miss the max bet, then we're going to get you 1 month of all of my max bets and best bets for free in college football.
Absolutely. And of course, I have the Elite Week deal. $75. You get all my NFL plays. You get all my college plays. If you want to go sign up for the month, it's $150. So you get, instead of paying every single week, you can get it for 2 weeks. You get the price of 4. But guess what? If I don't get you 5 units or more in that week, you get a month anyway. So it's a little bit of a gamble on that side. And also, if you want to know about my max bets, I'm 8-1 in football and max bets this year. And that includes NFL and college. The only one that I missed was one, and it was in week 2. But I hit all my NFL ones, and I'm 4-1 in college. So there you go. Go check it out on Why Lose, Telegram, Instagram. Click the link. Join both of us. But that's going to do it here for Player Performance Week 8 edition. I am Gunz Picks. That's Coach Rick. Let's cash some dickens. Let's dominate the board. And as always, Coach.
Giddy up.
And let's keep dancing.